209 wants us to replace x with, instead of that, you want 1 over x. So replacing this, you have 1 over x plus 1, and then you have 1 over x minus 1, and this whole thing is squared. So common denominator, well, let's see. You have equals x 1 plus x, and then the big one, x 1 minus x. So then you want to flip it, so that's the same as 1 plus x over x times the x over 1 minus x. So you flip this when you multiply it, and then you get, I almost forgot, this entire thing needs to be squared. So this entire thing is squared. The x's basically cancel out. So this x cancels out with that x, and you're left with x plus 1 over, or rather, let's say it would be 1 plus x over 1 minus x quantity squared. Well, this is, none of the answer choices are in this format where it's 1 plus x. They're always x minus something or x plus something. So how do we get this to look more like that? Well, you know the denominator, this 1 minus x is the same as minus x minus 1. Right, so that's the same thing. And of course 1 plus x is the same as x plus 1. So again, this thing is squared. Well, notice this negative sign is effectively for the entire expression. So what happens when you have a negative expression that's squared? Well, it's basically the same expression squared. So this is effectively the same as, you know, just keeping everything the same except removing the minus, right? So then this expression is the same as this, and I'll write it out clearer here. That's basically x plus 1 divided by x minus 1, you know, this quantity squared equals this. So x plus 1 over x minus 1 squared, and that's answer choice A. Okay, so in terms of concepts, this is algebra, and we're replacing, it's almost like functions, right? You have f of x, but instead of f of x, you want f of 1 over x. So meaning you plug in 1 over x in place of x and see what happens. It turns out you have fractions over fractions, and to get a common denominator within this term, you have to have x on the bottom. Then you figure out what goes on the top. You do the same thing for this part, and then since this is a big division problem, that's the same as multiplying by whatever's on the bottom, you make it on the top, and then this on the top goes on the bottom, so that this expression gets flipped over here, and then you multiply. Keep in mind the whole time you're squaring the end result. These x's cancel out since they're diagonally across from each other, and then you get 1 plus x over 1 minus x. 1 plus x over 1 minus x quantity squared. Now that's not one of your answer choices, so you have to go a little bit further, and if you want to flip it around, you basically negate the bottom and make it so that it's the same. So minus quantity x minus 1. So if you multiply this out, it's like a minus x, you have a minus x, and then the minus negative 1 will give you a positive 1. So this is exactly the same on the bottom. The top, you basically just flip the x plus 1. So these are exactly the same. So this quantity squared, and since you pulled out this negative can apply to the entire expression like it is here. And when you apply it to an entire expression like this, it's the same as if you remove the minus. So think of minus 1 squared. What is that the same as? Well, anything negative squared is the same as the positive version squared. So this is almost like negative 1 squared is the same as 1 squared. So everything else in the inside stays the same. So that's why x plus 1 over x minus 1 quantity squared, answer choice A is correct. As a recap, we were given an expression. We were told to replace the x with 1 over x. So then we did that. We found common denominators both on the top and the bottom. Then we combined them, canceled out the x's, and then squared the result. The result was not in the format that we wanted, but we knew we were on the right track. All we had to do was turn the 1 minus x into x plus or x minus something. And that involved just factoring out a negative 1 and applying that negative to the entire expression, squaring it to get rid of the negative, and end up with A as our final answer.